Heavenly Father, we just ask that you will bless this time, bless Elmer and the things that he wants to convey and what you want us to hear and convey. We just ask for your blessings on every part of this time, in every way, in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, you're quite welcome also to stay afterwards if you want to. In talking here. So we've got another person coming in. So welcome to everybody. I want to introduce you to Elmer. And Elmer has taught in Nigeria, China, Vietnam, as well as several locations in Canada. He holds a TESOL certificate from the Providence University College, which is in Manitoba, I think. And for the past 6 years, Elmer has taught ESL classes in Guelph under the auspices of International Student Ministries of Canada and ISMC. For the past 3 years, his classes have been upper level, and he's combined his classes with some activities like camping, cycling, picnicking, kayaking. Elmer lives in Guelph with his wife, Elvira, and they love being with their 3 children, their spouses, and families. And we want to welcome Elmer to share with us about his program that he set up with and curriculum on leadership using ESL as well.
Okay, hey, good to see all of you. I feel a little bit overwhelmed with all of these ESL experts looking at me here. I am just, I feel a bit like a traveling salesman in comparison, but I appreciated the word about us being family, and we learn from each other. I've learned so much from many of you and others, and so it's a delight for me to be together with you here today. I hope that everything will work out okay with some of the technology, but I'm going to keep it very simple. I want to just I'll have a short PowerPoint explaining why I'm doing this, how it came about, and then I want to just go over the curriculum, parts of the curriculum, to give you an idea of what I've developed, and then I want to also have you feel free to ask questions or to make suggestions. I'm hoping that out of this I will learn from you how I could do it better, and so it's always a learning process. So I'm going to go to my PowerPoint, and I'll share the screen for that. Okay, so my topic today is teaching leadership in the context of ESL. Pictures are on the way here. So yeah, so how I got into doing this. I am with the ISMC. I was teaching when I moved to Guelph. I started doing some volunteer teaching with ISMC, International Student Ministries, Canada. And our president, Dr. Yao Purby, a Canadian president, he was speaking at one of our gatherings, and he said that what we need to do as part of our teaching is to train our students in leadership. And he had a book, Thinking Outside the Window, a book that he wrote, very persuasive about how this is an opportunity for us to train leaders as we teach English. So I decided to get into it, and there weren't really materials available that I could find. So I decided to do something about it. I've been involved in leadership in different levels and cross-cultural ministry, and as well as just here in Canada. And I felt the need for that, my own to in my class, I felt that some of my teaching was at a very low level. I wanted to do something more substantive. So I thought this was really something that would help me. And let's see here. Then there was also the matter of what I was seeing in leadership here in our own country and around the world, and just realized that leadership needs to be taught and developed. And I felt, hey, maybe I can help to do that with students who are here to learn English. And many of them may go back to their country, and some may stay here, but could be in leadership here. Then I found that as I started doing this, students really affirmed me in this, and they felt, man, this is wonderful. They said, we don't get leadership training in our education back home in our country. So all of this together has made me really want to be involved in this. And so I decided to develop a course. Now, I just want to mention a couple of things about this course. One of them is that it's not a leadership course. It's not designed as a leadership course per se, and certainly not a leadership manual. It is a series of English lessons incorporating the theme of qualities of a good leader. So it's not, I don't deal a lot with styles of leadership and strategies of leadership and a lot of the depths of leadership training. It's just, what are some of the qualities of a good leader? And so I just want to be, and then I incorporate other ESL material into the material that I have here on leadership. You may wonder as I go through this, hey, what about pronunciation? What about grammar? And so on. I bring those in as the needs arise, as I notice problems students have with pronunciation. So those are all sort of extras that I bring in. So my focus is really on application and discussion. Discussion has a lot, there's so much value in discussing these themes in English, and then developing how do you ask questions and some of these things that come along with ESL. Okay, so let me go over to my course. Is it on there now? Qualities of a good leader?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Okay, so this is the beginning. I'll be okay now. Yeah. This is my curriculum. My lesson notes is really what this is, and I'll go through this fairly quickly because we only have an hour. But these are the topics I cover. I've developed these from scratch, but I came across these and decided these were valuable things for leaders to know. Qualities of a leader, and we won't even read all of these now. Each of these is one lesson and is really too much for one lesson. The material is too much, so at the end of a lesson, I will give them a copy of that lesson, and you'll see why. There's a lot of material in each of these lessons. So I have 18 lessons so far. I may develop some more, but it's been quite a bit of work. So let me just skim through some of these other things here. A whole bunch of quotes by John Maxwell about leaders, what's involved in leadership. So here, this is one thing I begin with in discussion, is what is a leader? So I have gleaned some short definitions from sort of the experts. People like Drucker, and even the dictionary to start with. Bill Gates and John Maxwell, Forbes magazine, and so on. And then we discussed these and we said, which one of these best describes what is a leader? And it was very good discussion. And we decided that none of these has all of it, but that the last one probably has the most, incorporating some of these other ones. So then we came up with sort of a comprehensive definition that we would use. And this is it. Leadership is that process by which we influence people in such a way that we help them to become the people who live their lives using their giftedness and potential to achieve the purposes and goals for themselves and others. So that incorporates basically all of those other ones that we had there, and we agreed that that's what we will make our definition.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you please repeat it?
Sorry, it's my phone. So then going on to our first chapter, honesty and integrity. And some of my first chapter I actually got from SOCM website, but one of the keys in honesty in any lesson is ESL lesson is vocabulary, and so I have quite a bit of vocabulary in this first lesson, similar words to integrity, or honesty and candidness, and so on. So we have some of those to go over. In each of my lessons, I like to have a little bit of teaching material, maybe a story or something. This one, the lion and the rabbit. We probably know the story of how the rabbit deceives the lion, tells a lie in order to save his whole rabbit tribe. And so then the question comes at the end, is it okay does the end justify the means? When you think of honesty and integrity. So we had a good discussion about that. Then there was another story I don't always use because of time, but then we had another one, Scott's Dilemma in business, a business story, case studies. I use a lot of case studies because they motivate them to discuss things. And this one also was, would it be okay for him to be dishonest in order to save his company?
Oh, sorry. I was reading the rabbit story, and I couldn't get to the end. Would you mind scrolling up so that I can see what happened to the rabbit?
I like the rabbit story. Okay.
Yeah, what happened? Okay, so
I love that story too. Yeah.
Angry attacked them and ate all the rabbits but himself. He said that challenging the supremacy. The other lion was uttered to be taken to the agreed and led the lion towards a deep well filled with water. Then he'd show the lion in reflection. Then it jumped into the water and kill it, but lost its life in the well. Yeah. Oh, okay. So it made it fool itself.
So the rabbits, this old wise rabbit saved his rabbit tribe by deceiving the lion, and he actually told a lie at one point. And so the question then is, does the end justify the means? Is it okay to tell a lie in order to achieve a higher purpose?
And what was the answer to it?
I think there was sort of a feeling that it would be okay in certain circumstances, but we didn't get far enough. I have to get back to that again. I just did that lesson now, and I want to refer back to it again. But chances are they would say, yeah, there are cases when you need to, but we won't discuss that now. We won't have time, but it's a very valid question, and it provokes discussion. This other one also has some but I can't get into the individual stories. I just want to show you the Scott's dilemma. That's a very practical one about business, a guy who's really facing a business issue. So what I'm just trying to show is that I use case studies to get them to talk about the issue. Then I do idioms. Every lesson that I have idioms that relate to that lesson. And so this is obviously not all the idioms that there are for this, but there's some really good, to cook the books and to be caught red-handed, be in cahoots with someone. These are common kinds of idioms that we use. So every lesson has idioms. Most lessons I have some quotes and proverbs about that topic. This one has a lot from the Bible, but also some of the other ones. You are not the Serbian one. You're not being honest if you burn your tongue and don't tell everyone else that the soup is hot. So that's obviously has a bigger connotations.
How long is your lesson? And did you do all of this during one lesson?
An hour and my lesson is an hour and a quarter. There are times when I will make it 2 lessons to 2 hours in one. But I can't cover all of this. And, I don't need to, all the idioms, I don't need to go over all of them with them. They can go over these on their own. They will have the lesson at the end of, for that following week. They have the lesson in their hands. So I can't go over all of this. I will do, a couple of case studies if I can. And go over some of the idioms, some of the quotes, depending on what. Now, here's another example. I had a couple of statements here. I said for them to choose one, your favorite one, and then share it with a friend or a coworker. What I've done with these lessons is I've actually made them so at the end, when let's say if somebody takes all 18 lessons and they have these in their hands, that I encourage them to use them to maybe start their own little English group and study English together using this and using the case studies, using the idioms. So there's no way that I can cover all of this with them.
Because even the idioms, right? I remember spending half an hour on this type of game type format, teaching certain idioms to a group, an intermediate group. And that took half an hour, just a different type of games to study and understand and remember certain idioms. Yeah, and so there's no way that.
That's a valid point. That's really a valid point. I don't have an hour and a quarter is not really enough because this is just the leadership part. I also do things on pronunciation. For example, for this first lesson, I wanted to know a little bit what their English was like. My students now are from Ecuador and Brazil. So I wrote out I made up some limericks for them to read, and together we did it together to get an idea of how their English was and the rhythm in their speaking and so on. So that in itself took 20 minutes. So it's not enough time. I agree, but I have to keep telling myself that I am sort of introducing this and hoping that they will dig further into it. Yeah, it's a valid point that time-wise, it's not enough time. Okay, let me go on to another one. The positive attitude. I'm just trying to hit on some highlights here. Notice that in the beginning, I have quite a bit of, let's see, vocabulary. There's the Cherokee legend, the story, a legend here where there's a lot of vocabulary. but it's again, it's a little legend that teaches a lesson on having a positive attitude. The last little bit here is the grandson thought about it and asked which one did he feed, which one which one won the war in himself, and it was the one that you feed. So the attitude that you feed will be the one that will be predominant. So then there are some teaching on different aspects of a positive attitude, and then some examples of some reading material we can use for even for rhythm and pronunciation. Then I have here's the Optimist Creed. I'm not going to do all of these. Then we back to the rhythm, to the idioms that relate to a positive attitude. Again, I'm not going to go over all of these with them, knowing that they can figure these out as they go along as well. These are students who are supposed to be in upper intermediate or advanced. Quotes about positive attitudes and so on. And then I have a short devotional. I like to incorporate some spiritual aspects where I can. This is a little article from Sarah Young's book on Jesus Calling. And, when you get up in the morning, start off with a positive attitude. So, yeah. Some of the others reading material, resource material for them to do on their own after if they're interested. Passion and commitment is another quality. This ad was in a flight magazine on a flight that I took in China from Shanghai to Zhengzhou, and just a little ad there, live your passion, with a clock there. So I use this as a way to get them to talk about what does it mean? What does it mean to live your passion? So this lesson is about commitment and passion. I like to use a Bible reference here. I think it's where I use Psalm. Oh no, well here I use examples of people who had passion, and I play some videos. I have a video of I think of Martin Luther King, one of his speeches. I have a video of Terry Fox, and so I'm trying to add some interesting stuff to that of people and some quotes on passion, vision and passion and commitment. Like the story about the pig and the chicken walking down the road. The chicken says, "Hey pig, I was thinking we should open a restaurant." Pig replies, "Maybe. What would we call it?" Chicken responds, "How about bacon and eggs?" The pig thinks for a moment and says, "No thanks. I'd be committed, but you'd only be involved." So commitment. Anyway, so here we have, again, examples of commitment. So I have some case studies. Commitment in marriage, example. Love, unconditional commitment is a story of a senior. His wife has Alzheimer's. He keeps visiting her. Story about that. A man on the moon. John F. Kennedy's commitment to that, making that speech. So on. Joshua. And then Jesus had set his eye like flint to head for Jerusalem. And
sorry,
Gideon, yeah.
sorry, Elmer Walkington. Could you give an example? You say you go through this in the classroom. What do you actually do with that material? Do you just read it out to them? Do you just ask them questions to make them discuss? Can you give examples of what's actually done in the classroom with some of this material?
Okay, well, that's a good question. Right now, I'm doing this on Zoom. So
right. Okay.
On Zoom, it's not nearly as how should I put it, as easy to be creative, to be inductive. I put a lot of emphasis on discussion. That's why I have the case studies. For
Okay.
example, or I would use breakout rooms in my Zoom, where I had these things here, case studies on marriage. Where was it? Farther down. You know, I would have them. We would discuss them. Either have them do it, maybe 2 or 3 in a group. If we're in a room, we can do that quite easily. Otherwise, you have to be breakout rooms.
Okay. So say like the one for marriage, right? Is there a list of questions that you give them? Will you be giving us that list?
The questions, why you mean the questions for each one?
Okay.
And
Oh,
I
it's-
don't necessarily, I would probably here, for example, here at the beginning, I say here, read each of these examples and try to pinpoint for each of them
Okay.
what the object of the commitment, the sacrifice or the cost involved in the commitment, and what are the rewards of that commitment. Okay. So then if I have 2 or 3 people working on the marriage one, for example, or one on the other one on the unconditional commitment, man on the moon or whatever. Yeah, so they would work at these 3, try and come up with the answers to these 3 things, A, B, and C, in this case. In other lessons, I have other case studies and I have other instructions for them to do what to do with them there. But yeah, I try and put a lot of emphasis on speaking. Sometimes the cultural aspect comes up as well. Reading, we will read some of these together, and in that comes pronunciation. But yeah, I like to do a lot of it to be verbally. I don't want them to sit and read quietly. No, I want us to be able to generate conversation. Okay. All right. Delegating and empowering. I won't spend much time on that one. I just wanted to mention when it comes to delegating in leadership, I have an exercise here for them to here I have some delegating and empowerment statements. So I have what do you say to somebody when you are delegating something to someone? And so I have examples here. And so I say here are a few examples of effective ways to communicate those who you lead. Practice saying some of these to your classmates. So I have them saying them to each other as a way of just, actually it's to practice their speaking, the English speaking and pronunciation and so on. Yeah, so there are also, here's case studies. Look at these examples of situations which involve leadership challenges. Each case involves the need for delegating and empowering. What would you suggest for each case? So they have to read it over, and I might do this in groups of 2 and say, okay, what should this person do? What leadership advice can you give Elmer for this first one? The second one is another situation. How can they make this happen? So it involves understanding the situation and saying, how could this leader, that Giovanna is a high school phys ed instructor. How could she do this? So, okay, that's delegating and empowering. And again, there's idioms to go with it. So on. I don't want to take too much time. How much time do we have?
You
Time is
have
going by quickly.
10 minutes of, unless you want more questions. Yeah.
Okay, ability to communicate. I use this for Valentine's Day, actually. Using the idea of communication, and little cartoon here. It's not what you say, John, it's how you say it. But anyway, what is communication? A little bit of, five types of communication, and then I also had made up some limericks that I wrote up for them, which I don't have on this here now, but for them to talk about love. So again, it has idioms. Oh, here's Jesus, the great communicator. I tried to share with them how Jesus communicated, especially with stories and examples from real life. Yeah, and then idioms, lots of idioms. Again, I can't go over all of these, but it's a resource for them as well. Now, ability to inspire. This one I would like to just mention how I use an activity here, where we have. Let's see, where's my? Here's an inspiring exercises, where somebody has makes a statement, and this person probably needs some kind of inspiration, needs to be, needs to have some input. So I've made up a bunch of examples here of people. For example, tomorrow will be my toughest day ever. My job just seems to be getting harder every week. So this person needs, as a leader, you want to help that person. So then I've got a bunch of extra statements here that we can use to inspire someone. So what I have my students do is each of them, they use a statement from the problem, and then from here, they need to choose what would be a way that you could inspire and encourage that person. This also involves expression. How do you say it? Go for it. Or that's a great idea. So I try to get them to, there's lots of interaction here to be an inspiring kind of person.
This type of description of an activity that you do with this material, I find very helpful. If I was to use this material as a teacher, I find that very helpful, because it's a lot of material, right? And it's good to have an example of an activity that the way you use this material, that's helpful.
Yeah, no, and that's very valid. I should mention too that I've just recently, in the last couple of years, developed this material, and it is sort of like a diamond in the rough. And I think the thing about developing more interactive materials is definitely something that needs to happen. And I think anybody who wants to use this material is certainly, everybody is free to adapt it, to make it what you want and what you feel would be best for your students. Definitely, this is not, it's sort of just one beggar telling another beggar where he's found bread, but we want to develop it more, for sure. I appreciate those comments. Yeah.
Maybe in the future, when there's time, developing a teacher's guide.
Yeah.
When I first started teaching in secondary school in Hong Kong, every textbook, at that time we still use textbooks, and every textbook had a teacher's guide with example activities of how to use that material in the classroom, and that was really helpful to me, as a beginner teacher.
Right. No, I think that's very, very valid. I don't think I have what it takes to do that. I also mentioned in the beginning, in the introduction, that this is not, I have not developed this as a, as a textbook to be published. Some of the things that I have used, I have not fully enough, credited the publishers and so on. These are just sort of like teacher notes as I was sort of fumbling my way along, wondering how can I teach these students. I have found the students have been very receptive, very appreciative of getting this kind of content, this kind of material as far as the leadership thing goes. And I think to be able to use it even more effectively for the English part is something that I need to work toward. So I appreciate all those comments. Okay, maybe I should stop here. There are other things that I've used as well farther down. But I think maybe my time is pretty well gone, 8:44. Unless there aren't questions, then I'll go on with another couple of, any other comments or questions?
I have a question, but I don't see anybody writing yet or anything. I have a question about cross-cultural things. Okay. We have cross-culturally, how do you work through some of those? Like I was thinking of the honesty part. That must be an interesting discussion, especially with the different views of honesty, of truly what that means. I would imagine that's a tough one to work through. We have a lot of South Asians here as students, and
Okay.
that makes a real difference of if it and any others will be save face type of thing. How do you you're working through that particular topic? That must be hard to
Yeah, quite honestly, this time around, I haven't had enough. Basically, my students are all from Peru. I'm sorry, from
Okay.
Brazil
Okay.
and Ecuador.
Mhm.
And I only had, when I taught this lesson, I think I had only 2 or 3 students. Their numbers are increasing now as I go along, but yeah, we haven't had enough time yet to
Okay.
really work at the cultural part. But that definitely is true all the way through. I try to be sensitive. I've tried with my case studies. I've tried to make them a little bit cross-cultural. Having lived in Nigeria and in Thailand for 5 years, I've learned a bit of those 2 cultures. So I've tried to be a bit sensitive to that.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely a thing to be sensitive to.
Okay, there's some questions in the chat, but I think we can answer some of these.
Okay, sure.
Helpful. How can we get a copy of this material? We will be sending that out after the back to you, the material. So not to worry about it. It's also on the SOSUM website as well already. I think if I understand that correctly. How do students find and sign up for your class? Hi, Liz. This is how to teach his material or how to, or presenting a curriculum that's useful. That's not Elmer. You can add to it, Elmer. I think this is not to, if you want classes, Liz, for if you know some students who need more help, there's a number of them online. Elmer's one of them. That would be, he probably would welcome.
No, I was just curious for, excuse me, just specifically for Elmer, how his students find and sign up for his class. I couldn't remember if it was through his church, or was a university, or he needs to recommend other students to his class. I'm just curious how his students specifically find his class.
Right now,
It's
okay,
up to you, Elmer, if you wanted more students, I think.
right now I have 6 students. I'm doing it on Zoom. I figured I didn't want more than 10. So if you have a student who would like to join my class, send me an email, elmer.workington gmail.com.
Thank you. I was just curious, how do your students find your class? Like, how do they find out that the class exists?
How do they know it
Uh,
exists?
Okay, I'm with International Student Ministries Canada.
Okay.
So they have they have a bunch of classes running here in the Guelph area.
Mhm.
So it's largely by referral. They have, for example, I have two gals now from Brazil. They have just arrived here. They're postdoc students, and they came through ISMC. I think they found out that other Brazilians had recommended it. Our gal downstairs lives with us. She's Ecuadorian, and she has a couple of friends in Ecuador, one sister-in-law. So they came on, and through that, there's two more Ecuadorians that want to take my course. So it's largely referral. I'm willing to take up to 10 people. I love it. I hope that eventually I can have it back in my home. Like the introduction said, I like to incorporate it with going camping and picnics and stuff. But it's hard when people are in Ecuador or other parts of the world. So it's a bit of a, what do we do? Right now, I'm doing it on Zoom for several reasons. And probably we'll finish up this semester doing it on Zoom till end of June.
Okay, is there
Thank you for
anybody else?
clarifying. Yeah, I was just curious kind of how programs like this get started, how they find their students, things like that. So thank
Yeah.
you for clarifying.
Yeah, ISMC, International Student Ministries Canada, is
Yeah.
they have a movement here in town for international students, and one of them is English. And so they can set up a student for a more beginners class, or the lower intermediate, and then mine is upper intermediate or advanced. So yeah.
Yeah, Guelph is quite the what do you call it? It's well known for us who in the Southern Ontario for what they're doing. ISMC. I am with IMC. I'm helping out with ISMC Focus Club, whereas they don't have an ESL class, but I get ESL students in that group, that focus club meeting, that I am actually they've just found out that I could be of help to them to explain some of the conversations that they're having, and they're doing leadership as well. So there's all kinds of, ISMC is doing it in different combinations in different cities. So yeah.
Yeah, like here in Guelph too, they do the
Awesome, thank
Alpha.
you.
They're also involved with the Alpha program together
Yeah.
with Power to Change.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Okay, here's one. Jeff McCarroll is saying, I appreciate your broad variety of quotations, colloquialisms, idioms. Do you know some good resources?
I just went online and looked for sources there. There's lots of material there, especially when it comes to idioms. And yeah, I just did it online.
Has anybody had, I found personally that when I put out idioms, my students would, too many, they would be overwhelmed. And I just said, choose one to use this week. Just choose one. Find a way of using it. If that's a good way. So Glenna writes down here, International Student Ministries Canada, imcmc.ca. In the chat. Any other questions or comments or queries?
Yeah, I found too, like we just use one each week when we have our lesson. The idioms, we just use one of them for the students.
Yeah, and I think that's fair enough. And my purpose in giving them a bunch of them, like a dozen of them, is that it's a resource for them. It's not necessarily that's all they will, that they have to use all of them right now, but hey, it's a resource. Some of them may hear them and wonder what does it mean, so they have a bit of something to fall back on. But I certainly don't expect them to memorize them for that week and use them all. No, for sure.
Okay, here's one. Does this curriculum lend itself to more personal sharing from the students, like the commitment stories or anything?
How does it mean, like for the teacher to do that, or for the student to do that, or what?
Jennifer, do you want to add to it?
No, so for kind of more relational sharing from the students so that they can share about their lives a little bit. I'm just wondering about that.
Like in the class, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would say not. There's a couple of times where I have asked, whether it's actually part of the question is, have you had personal experience with this with this issue or this problem or whatever? But generally, it would, in my class, we wouldn't have a lot of, there wouldn't be a lot of personal sharing of this is what happens to. Part of it is because of the time factor, and and then also because, especially on Zoom, I find that people are not as ready to relate that way on Zoom as they would if they were sitting together.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, here's Gisela has added one book with lots of quotes and idioms is Compelling Conversations by Eric Roth and Tony Aberson, Chimeo Press. So Gisela, you've enjoyed that book, sounds like.
Yeah, it's trying to think.
Thank you, that's helpful, yeah.
Anyway,
Oop, we lost. Did we lose her?
sorry.
There she is. Okay, is there any other questions anybody have? No questions? Okay. We're almost at the very end of the 9 o'clock time. You're quite welcome. We have the room for another half hour if you have any questions, or Elmer could show some other favorites of his of lessons if he wants to. We'll just explain to you that so the webinar does qualify for TESOL Ontario PD hours. If you requested a certificate of participation for this purpose, it will be sent to you after the webinar. If you'll be sent a link to an evaluation form after the webinar, please fill it out because it helps us a lot to know what we're and how we can plan our webinars in the future. We have a webinar in March, will be amalgamated with the Calgary ESL Cooperative Spring Training on March 25th. That's a Saturday. Our presenter that we sponsor is C.Y. Yan. He will give an opening presentation of making sense of honor and shame cultures at 11 a.m. Registration for the event is already open. It's $35. If I
25, I think. 25 or online.
Is it? Oh, 25 online, sorry. Please see eslministries.org under the events. What we're going to do is pray to close the meeting, but if you can stay for another half hour, and I think Elmer had a favorite he wanted to share, his very favorite lessons or that. If you want to ask more questions, this is a good time. So let's just close in prayer. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for this amount of work that Elmer has put into this, and we just pray that it will be used to glorify you, to reach out to students, to help them as they grow and learn, and that they would find you in a deeper way as well, and help them with their leadership skills. We just ask for your blessings on each one of participants tonight, and those who are not with us, but we'll get this recording. We just ask for your blessings as they consider using this, that we ask that you will just bless their time and the service that they give to give you and point others to you in this through this ministry. In Jesus' name, amen.